Despite France having declared war on Germany back in 1939 in response to German aggression in the east, the conflict in the west had remained limited to the French Saar offensive. Emboldened by the lack of opposition, the German planning of an invasion of the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Luxembourg, case yellow, was thus prepared for in relative calm. Commanding the Grand Quartier General stands Maurice Gamelin, with a single army group at his disposal. This army group is commanded by Gaston-Henri Bulot. The total force is divided into 4 French armies, organized into 11 corps and totaling 26 divisions. Additionally, the British Expeditionary Force, consisting of 4 corps and totaling 12 divisions under command of Lord Gort, is serving along the French. Further north, the Belgian army stands ready to defend its homeland, expecting aid from its allies to hold back the Germans. Commanded by King Leopold III, the Belgian army is divided into 9 corps and totals 21 divisions and assorted smaller units. Lastly, in the north, the Dutch army under command of Henry Winkelmann can expect very little in the way of Allied support. The under-equipped Dutch army consists of 4 corps and totals just 9 divisions and an assortment of small, scattered border guard forces. The densely wooded region of the Ardennes was deemed impassable for a modern army by the Western Allies and thus only lightly defended. The Germans, however, disagreed on this notion. Ready for the summer offensive stand 2 German army groups. Army Group A in the south, commanded by Gerd von Rundstedt, consists of 14 corps and totals 37 divisions. This force is tasked with the main offensive into France through the Ardennes, as well as the suppression of Belgium. Army Group B in the north, under command of Fedor von Bock, with its 9 army corps and 27 divisions, is to overwhelm the Netherlands and then sweep south into Belgium to support the northern flank of Army Group A. The invasion was set to begin on the 10th of May, 1940. German forces march west as planned. A glider assault by Gruppe Witzig captures the fortress of Eben Emael by surprise, though ground forces will not reach their position until the following day, meaning the paratroopers must hold out until then. In a major oversight by the German command, despite solid intel available, the French and Belgian aerodromes are left untouched by German bombers, which instead drop their ordnance over the strongest identified Allied troop concentrations across the front. The German paratroopers hold out against Belgian counterattacks throughout the day. German commanders turned down the idea of using the Luftwaffe to terror-bomb Dutch cities in order to force the nation's leadership into submission. The strategy is deemed simply too barbaric and unnecessary, as the German forces are making good time in advancing westward. The German 18th Army captures Arnhem, Ed, Wageningen and Mill, and begin work on restoring bridges destroyed by the retreating Dutch forces. The 4th Panzer Division manages to exploit a gap between the Belgian 1st and 3rd Corps and dashes west, capturing Tongeren. In the Ardennes, the German forces encounter only light Belgian forward scouts. Luxembourg is captured, and the 16th Army headquarters relocate there. Belgian forces perform minor counterattacks across their front, but fail to push the Germans back to any notable extent. As German troops are identified moving through the Ardennes, the Allies swiftly abandon the Dial plan aimed at bolstering Belgian morale. Instead, the French army focuses on rapidly building an entrenched line of defenses along the River Maas to the south. A line of Dutch forces in good defensive terrain is discovered around what the Germans now call the Amersfoort Line. Due to the terrain advantage, it is decided to use motorized divisions to strike at the southern end of this line, rather than fight it head-on. The 7th Airborne Division is dropped deep behind Dutch lines near The Hague, hoping to capture or disrupt the Dutch High Command. In case of unexpectedly strong Dutch opposition along their way, the 9th Panzer Division is sent southwest with a plan to push north along the coast, securing a supply line for the airborne units as they head south for their link-up. German forces attempt to assault Liège, defended by the Belgian III Corps from the northeast. The ambitious attempt fails and ends up costing hundreds of men in German casualties. Aerial recon indicates French units heading east, further into Belgium. A strong French line is also identified along the River Maas to the south, acting as a bulwark to prevent the Germans from advancing toward Paris. To aid the 7th Airborne Division, the German 22nd Airborne makes its drop on Utrecht. They fail, however, to secure the bridges near the city intact. With German forces advancing at speed into the Netherlands, the entirety of the Dutch III Corps is in danger of encirclement at Zaltbommel. The German 23 and 13 Corps reach the western edge of the Ardennes and encounter French forces across the Maas River to the west. Poor weather grounds much of the Luftwaffe, preventing effective operations above the front line. The Dutch front initiates a retreat, though this comes far too late, as the fast-moving German troops have already cut off the southern edge of their line. The German 9th Panzer secures a tenacious supply line for the 22nd Airborne Division in Utrecht, but the lack of supplies and bridge construction equipment, as well as disruption by the Dutch army, hampers any further advance. The encirclement of Liège is swiftly finished off, with an estimated 11,000 Belgian troops killed or captured in the final push alone. In the south, German probing attacks against the French line manage to find weak spots, which are swiftly exploited. This action gains the Germans their first bridgehead across the River Maas with far less effort than anticipated.
May. Storms and rain. Should consider issuing umbrellas to the troops at this rate, or life jackets.
An excerpt from the German Command War Diary. Though they were not aware of it at the time, the German commander's diary entry proved rather prophetic. The Dutch High Command orders dikes and dams to be blasted open, flooding the so-called waterline. Numerous bridges are swept away, and German SS units scurry west to secure the last remaining bridges. As the German bridgehead expands and is accompanied by a second one further west, the French southern line is deemed far weaker than anticipated. The 1st Panzer Division is called south to help exploit the breach. The German 7th Airborne Division, having failed to secure their objectives, radio out their plight. Supplies have run out, they are trapped behind Dutch lines, and their situation is dire. Efforts made to secure a supply line fall just short. The German plan shifts as a wide gap is identified between the main French and Belgian front lines around the city of Gembloux. This Gembloux gap is to be the destination of the German 27 Corps, along with several panzer divisions. The French Mars line buckles as a third German bridgehead is established. Mézières, Sedan, and Montmedy are all in German hands, and the blown bridges are restored within a day. The division SS Totenkopf is deployed in Trier and attached to the 16th Army 7 Corps. Its main mission is to drive on Paris. The French perform numerous counterattacks in an attempt to push back the German bridgeheads over the river Maas. The effort is wholly unsuccessful. The Dutch government signals its willingness to surrender unconditionally. Dutch armies lay down their arms during the early morning hours on the 17th of May. Fierce battles rage around Antwerp and Brussels as the German army advances from the north and the east. Belgian, British, and French forces unite to defend the two cities. The city of Namur, defended by the remnants of the Belgian 7 Corps, is encircled as the Germans advance through the Gembloux Gap.
17th of May. 3 assault wedges are driving themselves deep into the French line from the south, with lead elements of the 29th Motorized having reached the outskirts of Auxerre, overtaking the French 10th Corps headquarters in the process. A late elements of the 13th Mechanized discovered the HQ, transiting through the woods, retreating from the front.
An excerpt from the German Command War Diary. The British mount a set of notable counterattacks in Belgium, while French counteroffensives turned into retreats. German forces press south toward the heart of Antwerp and come close to securing the city itself. Defenders of Brussels are also steadily pushed back, even as French reinforcements arrive from the west. A German advance to the south of the city, aimed at reaching the defenders' flank, is hampered by French and British forces around Nivelles. The battle for Namur ends with the Belgian 7 Corps annihilated. In the south, the German bridgeheads expand and merge rapidly, though this advance comes with a high rate of casualties, which is noted with some concern by the German High Command. Additional French divisions are observed, marching to the aid of Antwerp from the southwest, buying the Belgian city more time under German pressure. Maurice Gamelin is replaced as the commander of the French armed forces by Maxime Weygand. German probing attacks in the west provide little of value, as the British prove themselves quite capable defenders. The recently deployed SS Totenkopf takes the lead and reaches the town of Suippes in the south. Remnants of the French Mars line are cut off and encircled, though some continue to slip away to the west. Advancing Germans cover vast reaches of land, with the 2nd and 8th Panzer Divisions leading the charge that is threatening to entrap numerous French divisions to their south. The Allied line is also breached in the north, along the coastline, with the Germans securing a tenuous supply line for the SS units advancing on the city of Hulst. Central Antwerp is taken by a German assault force, dislodging the Allied defenders. Likewise, central Brussels is captured the very same day, although parts of the city still remain in Allied hands, with fierce street fighting taking place. With the loss of 2 key cities in one day, the Belgian government signals its willingness to surrender. While some divisions still continue to fight, it is now only a matter of time until they will have no choice but to lay down their arms. Both Antwerp and Brussels are cleared of Allied forces after fierce fighting. German troops are granted a brief period of rest as units are reorganized and reoriented for further advance into the west. A strong French line focused around the city of Mons is supported by an extended line of British forces to its north, reaching all the way to Bredonk to the north of Brussels. This is identified as a major obstacle by the Germans. The British are deemed a particularly tough opponent, especially with the rivers affording them additional protection, and thus German plans are adjusted to move around them rather than fighting through them head-on. While approaching Paris from the east, the SS Totenkopf division encounters Polish forces under French command at Thierry, Dormans and Montmirail. With the 1st Panzer Division having joined the advance, the Poles are considered a minor obstacle. An unsupported force of French armour attempts to cut off the supply routes of the German southern spearhead, but can only hold their ground for less than 24 hours before being dislodged by a German infantry division. As the leading SS units in the north continue to struggle with their fuel supply due to French disruption, the 1st Cavalry Division overtakes them and captures a bridge leading further west. With the German advance applying pressure on them, French forces in Mons retreat en masse, attempting to avoid encirclement. The 7th Panzer Division reaches Cambrai, meeting no resistance on its way, with 8th Panzer trailing behind. 2nd Panzer and 13th Motorized pass La Fère and rapidly advance west toward Noyon. Mirroring the fuel supply issues in the north, the southernmost tip of the German spearhead toward Paris is delayed due to fuel and supply shortages. Much of the German 40 Corps and all of the 13 Corps are ordered to march on Soissons to the north and to swing west and south again from there, smashing into the rear of the Polish forces, blocking the passage toward Paris. The last of the Belgians lay down their arms. The British, already in a headlong retreat towards the coast now that their allies are vanishing from the front line, continue to fall back to avoid forming gaps in their line of defense. The 1st German Cavalry Division takes Zeebrugge and secures the port there. Recon reports indicate British divisions moving at speed toward the ports of Calais and Dunkirk, which are considered a sign that they are about to abandon their French allies. Panzer divisions continue to charge through France, encountering no opposition whatsoever. Cambrai and Arras are captured without a fight, and railway lines are severed to prevent the French retreat from Belgium. A French division at Soissons attempts to defend the city, though much of the German force simply marches south and west again, focusing on opening the road toward Paris instead of fighting the defenders. French and British artillery inflict horrendous casualties on the Germans, with the 12th Infantry Division of the 2nd Corps reporting over 500 men lost to artillery fire on this day alone. German forces are starting to struggle with extended supply lines, resulting in delays all across the front. The German 1st Cavalry Division advances along the coast, passing Ostend. It is considered only a recon force, however, as it lacks the strength to overcome any notable Allied formation. The German 7th Panzer Division reaches Aire-sur-la-Lune, still meeting no resistance and putting it just 2 days' drive from the coast, though reports indicate British forces moving in from the east. Constant firefights continue to sap the southern spearhead of supplies, resulting in poor performance against the Polish forces. However, 5 fresh German divisions marching in from the east are expected to join the battle and shatter the Polish forces shortly. Preparing for their later offensive, aerial recon over Paris is ordered by the German High Command. Initial reports indicate only a single French division and a host of smaller forces with a small reserve of armour. German High Command considers this report with great suspicion, as it would mean the French capital is all but defenceless against any notable offensives. British forces strike at the vulnerable 1st Cavalry Division, cutting it in half northeast of Nieuport. The British also attempt to cut off the rapidly advancing 7th Panzer Division, though additional German divisions are arriving from the south within the same day. The French First Army is annihilated as Noyon falls and nearly 3,000 officers and command staff are captured. With the battle over, German divisions struggle to quickly reorganize for a march further west. As the Germans move past the Polish positions in the south, the defenders falter and begin to collapse. The 1st German Panzer Division pushes the Polish line further west with massed artillery support covering their advance. Half of the 1st Cavalry Division is wiped out in the British attack, with the remnants falling back east as more capable and freshly supplied SS units arrive at last. Strong British forces assembled at Nieuport served to shield Dunkirk from the German advance in the east. However, the number of British troops is far less than anticipated by the Germans. In Ghent, the French 7th Army is surrounded with no hope of escape, though this action binds some of the German forces for the time being, as the pocket needs to be cleared to secure their advance and their supply line. The Polish forces guarding the gateway to Paris initiate a chaotic retreat, only to be overtaken and encircled by the advancing German panzers and the motorized SS Totenkopf division. A wide, seemingly undefended gap is formed and appears to provide a clear line of advance on Paris herself. British counterattacks on the advancing 5th Panzer is rebuffed with minimal German casualties. Rail transport capacity of the Germans is proving to be a bottleneck, preventing fresh forces from being sent deeper into France en masse. In practice, only a single division can be transferred over a long distance each day. Orders are given for Guderian and Hof to charge the British line and shatter it so that the port of Calais can be reached. The 10th Panzer Division manages to outflank the British 3 Corps and threatens their headquarters, situated in Batten. Aerial recon information, arriving later in the day, proves that much of the British force has already shipped off across the Channel, making further sacrifices with the aim of reaching Dunkirk less than desirable. New orders arrive, halting any major offensives in the north. The situation of the French is evaluated by German High Command, with new aerial recon and intelligence coming in. It is deemed hopeless, with Paris considered too weak to defend itself for more than a day or two. Estimates put the force defending Paris at just around 30,000 soldiers, though the remnants of the French Air Force make accurate intel gathering a challenge. The British command finds that their overcommitment in attacking the German cavalry along the coast has resulted in heavy artillery and 3 full divisions becoming stuck in the coastal wetlands, unable to retreat as the Germans advance past them. A swift advance by the German 9th Panzer and the SS Adolf Hitler cuts off the 3 British divisions around Nieuport, preventing their retreat west to Dunkirk. A pocket of French forces in Ghent is cleared out after a coordinated air and artillery barrage, followed by the infantry assaulting into the city. This was the last French force on Belgian soil. German commanders are becoming concerned of extended supply lines as well as the gaps in the German front, formed due to the rapid advance. However, the risk of French forces performing counterattacks through these gaps is considered remote at best. Orders are given to press on. Numerous German divisions in Belgium are ordered to stand down so that supplies can be more efficiently directed to units currently advancing further into France. The 10th Panzer Division is the first German division to reach the Channel coast, with the 6th Panzer further south achieving the same just hours later. As the German divisions close in on Paris from the north and the east, extensive aerial bombardment is initiated all across the city. Rainstorms prevent the Luftwaffe from continuing the bombardment of Paris at full force. Action along the front is very limited, with German divisions roaming and seeking out remaining French forces to pin them down, while the main force surrounds Paris. Some confusion among German commanders results in the panzer divisions facing the British in the north to be recalled south, rather than finish off their assault on the British-controlled Channel ports. German forces reach the outskirts of Paris and are faced by a ragtag force of French troops. The last British forces capable of doing so cut their losses and evacuate across the Channel, abandoning the French and their own remaining divisions to the Germans. The grim final orders received by the British forces now trapped around Newport.
Fight until all ammunition expended. Buy time for the evacuation. Surrender when spent.
The battle for Paris is short and swift. With massive air and artillery support, the 15th Infantry Division breaks through the French line and captures the center of Paris, reaching the Seine River. Faced with an impossible situation, an overwhelming enemy, and abandoned by their only remaining ally, the French government signals its surrender. The white flag rises late in the afternoon on the 30th of May 1940, with Heinrich von Wietinghoff of the 13th Corps formally accepting the French surrender. As the war in France draws to a close, grim history is written. This has been a after-action report on the game Decisive Campaigns, the Blitzkrieg from Warsaw to Paris, as played by myself, Wham, as the Germans, and my opponent, Virago, as the Allied forces. Thank you for watching.